Tomorrowland is a promise. It's a promise that we make to one another. A promise to dare and make a better future than today. 5 years ago, I made a conscious decision to stop my design practice. We have done projects over the last 15 years that won various awards across various parts of the world in various design disciplines. From large-scale development projects such as this, we built, together with Gensler, the Galata Port in Istanbul, which is the first ever boardwalk that tacks all of the programs of cruise ship terminal below sea level, and various other projects for various clients. And I decided to stop all of those efforts. Wait, I'm flipping slower than I'm speaking. We've done all of those projects, and they were very exciting in various disciplines. We had a holistic practice for design. But then I realized that the life that we're living in cities needs to change. The life that I had at the time was that I would go to nature in the weekend, spend the weekend in the country, come back to the city during the week, and I realized that is not a world solution. We can't live in two home solutions and drive from one place to another. We simply forgot something, that we are part of nature and we need to live in harmony with nature, ideally, all the time. So I started Supernature Labs, and I didn't know what I'm getting myself into until I found this fact that really is one of the things that I think about every single day. We are going to double the built environment somewhere in the next 30 to 40 years. In fact, we're doubling the land coverage of cities somewhere in the next 20 years, which is crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Yes, it's not happening in Europe, it's not happening in the US, but it's happening in Africa, it's happening in China, in India, it's happening in the Middle East. And it's just crazy to think that this is how we build cities, right? When you look at those images, those are not necessarily troubled cities. That was LA, this is London, and even a place like London is relatively green. When you look at those images, we realize that the way that we plan cities have to change, right? If I'm given a certain plot and I can only go vertical, so I can only build low-rise, mid-rise, high-rise, and skyscrapers, right? And if those are the only typologies that we build, the planning needs to change. So obviously, sprawl is not the solution. And when we say we need a massive change, we are talking about a holistic change. We're talking about industries coming together, planners and landscapers, and mobility experts, and many others to solve that problem. So maybe we can build a future that is more ecological, and this is where bioplanning is a discipline that we've created over the last 5 years. It's a new urban planning discipline that accelerates the future of what we call ecological harmony. So if we're looking at the massive overtake of land that has been happening for the last couple of decades, and we're thinking of the fact that we're doubling land coverage in the next 20 years, then we have to stop this sprawl. We have to stop this expansion and think differently. So our proposal is to actually change the world design mandate from only thinking about sustainability and actually starting to think about ecology holistically. What does that mean to think about ecology? If we look at nature and how nature fragment and build, nature, every living thing is organized itself in cell formation, right? Various types of cell formation, various types of form, but the geometry is pretty much the opposite of what we call the Cartesian linear logic, right? You see it under the microscope and you see it under the telescope. And when you look at this geometry and you start to realize the benefits that a cell have and the aggregation that cells have, you find tremendous benefits. I'm going to talk about a few of them. But of course, we build like that because it was economically easier and feasible. That's not the case anymore. So the question is, what if we can grow city like nature does? That's what Supernature's approach is all about. And since we have a history of working with projects in nature and integrating nature into our projects and understanding the benefits of experience that we have in nature, we started thinking, okay, what if we start looking at cell formation in terms of planning of cities and communities? And we found tremendous benefit. So starting with the fact that on the left, you see that we haven't really given a natural area. We need to, in order to create park, we need to basically make certain decisions, and we need to cut certain areas and say, nobody touches this area, this is going to preserve as a park. By creating cellular logic, we can reduce the amount of road and road infrastructure by more than 50% and return the amount of nature to be more than a quarter of the land. So you're looking at those representation in three-dimensional way, which actually helps to understand that we maintain the same amount of massing, we maintain the same amount of built area, but reduce drastically the amount of road infrastructure, and return green spaces inside of each community. So now that can happen in various forms. That can happen in ways that we can actually analyze and understand what is the best form that fits the specific terrain, the specific climate, the specific condition of sun path, wind flow, and many others. And we realized that those cell formation can change in various ways according to various conditions, and the percentages still can maintain. So if we're thinking about two aspects, one is designing like nature, right, which is not just cell, it's basically taking into the logic of ecology into our cities. And the second thing is, and there are many research on that, which is design with nature, right? So tremendous benefits, improvement of stewardship, focus, better oxygen, better view, and better human experience. So when we look at this design logic, we are starting to realize that it gives us a different geometry to work with. And this different geometry creates new possibilities, not just low-rise, mid-rise, and high-rise that are all based on various shapes of squares. So we are essentially calling the replacement of what we call the superblock is now the supercell, ideally made with modular biophilic solutions of components, but doesn't have to be, right? So obviously, if we're talking about the fact that we're going to double the land coverage of cities, what you see on the left is a collage of 20 cities around the world, very known cities, and of course the hope and the promise that we can create a tapestry of cells in various ways. So jumping on this very, very quickly and just touching on a couple of massive benefits. I talked about the reduction in road and road infrastructure. There is also a tremendous benefit to the fact that we have central deployment of all of our components, which helps construction be a lot faster and therefore a lot cheaper. So if we're thinking about those benefits, if we can plan with 50% less road and road infrastructure, where traffic can actually flow better and safer, and where more than a quarter of the land can be park and green spaces, faster construction time, massive improvements of quality of life, why wouldn't we explore this? So this is not just a concept, it's actually a call to action. What we want to do is really stop thinking about cities in such a way and really start thinking about various ways of building with this movement. So obviously, Thomas have been a part of those 12 subject matter experts that have supported us in understanding various disciplines that are part of this approach. Ooh, I have some repeating slides. But yeah, just to touch on a couple of things, mobility, right? We typically design cities for the transportation. Now, the flow within cell is actually much faster than a flow within a Cartesian logic simply because we don't have four-ways intersection, right? Four-ways intersection creates 16 potential collision points versus three-ways intersection that are only creating 3 points of collision, which makes us move through those intersections much faster, much safer, much calmer. And when you look at that in aggregation, you can see a tremendous reduction in conflict point. So the very first time that you're actually separating between vehicular circulation and pedestrian path, right? Now you can basically move from one cell to another without experiencing traffic at all. We're not walking on sidewalks that are alongside road as we are today. Tremendous benefits on energy. Right? If you look at the idea of organizing your cells according to the sun path, you're actually minimizing heat and cooling during summer and winter. There's tremendous benefits of flood risk reduction, noise, and so forth. And hopefully, we can have a more harmonious environment than putting ourselves in a grid. Thank you very much.